This video is sponsored by Narked at 90. They are beyond technical. Right now there's an offer on if you go to narkedat90.com and use the Big Scuba code BIGSCUBA2024.
Hello and welcome to the Big Scuba podcast, but today we are doing something different. We are going to be doing a roving report at deep.com, and here Gemma.
Hello.
And also Phil Short.
Hi.
Phil, tell us about what Deep is and what your role is, and a little bit about you.
No problem. So basically, Deep Research Labs Limited is an organisation set up to enforce protection, research and education of the oceans. Prime means by which we're doing that is to generate underwater subsea habitats that scientists can live in for weeks at a time to study the oceans, to learn about them, to look at ways we can conserve and look after them.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is have a tour of the facilities. At the moment we're here in Portside, which is our laboratory, our manufacturing facility. So we're going to send the guys through a look at all our test facilities, our wave tank, our dive test tank, our pressure pot, our submarines. So we'll let them have a look through the submersibles and see how they work, because they happen to be in workshop today for some servicing.
Right.
Our additive manufacturing system, whereby we can print in metal. And then after lunch, we're going to take them over to what you guys will know as the former NDAC, which is now our campus or our research lake. And we'll give them a guided tour down onto the waterside to the subs island, where their gantry crane launched into the water for sub-pilot training, answer any questions they've got, give them a sit in the subs, and hopefully give them a thoroughly excellent educational day.
Right.
Brilliant.
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, right. Hope you enjoy it.
Right,
Excellent.
let's go then.
Right.
Our first port of call, Phil has taken us over to a 3D model of the campus. So we can see how the layout of the waterside is looking, or will look, with
Yes, a
buildings.
great big
being-
table with all these 3D layouts of bits and bobs and where the building's all going to go.
It was like being in a ship with like the command thing.
Yeah, it was really good. And, you could visualise how it's all going to go.
Yeah. And then we've wandered over to the 3D printers as
Yeah,
well.
WAMs.
So they're called WAMs. One was in action, this laser printing on metal, and they're going to be used to make the actual modules when it comes
You
to...
can literally make anything out of these printers.
It's really hard to get your head
Yeah,
around,
they're
isn't
not
it?
your everyday printer by HP that you might have on your desk. These are a great big type. If you're a nerd and you're into
No,
technical
you can't
stuff,
say people are nerds.
well, people are, and they are, and people get excited by machinery and lathes and stuff. And these machines are whirring away, and you can build all sorts of things out of metal.
Yeah, so they were in these like big boxes,
Cabinets, yeah.
like cabinets, good couple of meters, 3 meters
Yeah,
high.
yeah.
and all in action. And
We're in this great big warehouse, aren't we? And you'll hear from our on-site talks that there's a big warehouse. There's lots going on, and a lot of the things are all in these pods that can be transported. So when the campus is ready, they will be moved and transported to the campus. So everything's all in one place.
Shipping containers. That's how we'll explain it.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, and so we've done the WAMs, and Phil is now going to take us on a tour of the Sentinel, which is the underwater habitat, and it's actually a mock-up, life-size, made out of wood.
It is, yeah, and you can get to see and be in it and see how things are all going to be laid out.
Yeah, so we're going to take you inside.
Here we go.
Phil's going to give us a tour. So now back to Phil.
So this stairwell and door wouldn't exist. This is just an easy way to take us into a simulator. So we'll go segment by segment. As I said, these stairs, just come inside, they're not there. So we've got this little door to cover it up to make it a little bit more realistic. These circles are the actual size of viewports. Viewports are curved. So basically the amount of light in here, even something like on the Cayman Wall, places in the Caribbean like that, 150, 160 metres, you've still got ambient light. So you imagine like going to bed at night, laying in your bunk and looking up through that to the blue above you is going to be pretty amazing.
So this is going to be like a dome over, is it?
This is the only end that's not roofed, and the reason for that is this where I'm standing is the moon pool. So in the functional Sentinel, this is the way in and out of the water.
Okay.
The way in and out of the water will be a diver lift, very similar to on the back of a South Coast boat. Bit posher, a lot more features to it, but in essence, a lift cage, 2 divers can stand inside it, ROV in front of them, the whole lot lowers down. The tethering or umbilical goes down with them. There'll be lead-ins on top of it to stop any entanglement. Off they go for their dive.
So they'll always be attached to the habitat?
Yeah, so basically, without turning this into a let's teach people how to commercial dive, deep water commercial diving uses surface supply via a system called Reclaim. So it's not a rebreather, but it does the same job. And the reason they reclaim is helium's so expensive. So on the rigs, the gas is on the surface, it goes down a massive umbilical to the closed bell. From the bell it goes on smaller umbilicals out to the divers, goes into the helmet, they breathe it, comes out of the helmet, goes back down another hose to the bell, from the bell up to surface, CO2 scrubbed, oxygen's replenished, goes back down to the bell in a circuit. So effectively it is a rebreather of sorts.
So same as submarine?
No.
It's not?
No, it's basically the same as a rebreather.
Okay.
Submarine's just an atmospheric environment with CO2 scrubber and a leaky valve to replenish the oxygen at atmospheric.
Okay.
Now that reclaim works on the principle that if you're at 100 metres, that gas is going to go back to the surface by Boyle's law. It's just going to float up. So reclaim has always been notoriously unreliable in shallower water. So a 50 metre sat, a 20 metre sat, really hard to make reclaim work. 100 metres, 150, 200 beyond, very, very easy. The object of Sentinel is to be completely self-contained, so we can't use reclaim because will not have a hose to the surface.
Okay.
If you were to do a 21-day dive cycle from a Sentinel with open circuit, i.e. blowing the gas out and letting it float away, your supply of helium would be bigger than the Sentinel, and the cost for a single mission would be prohibitive by any standard. So the logic is, what you'll do is you'll dive from here on a rebreather as we know them. None of the ones you know because they're not rated deep enough, but of that style, electronic, closed circuit, mixed gas rebreather, rated to the performance depth of the Sentinel. That will be your primary. You'll also then have a surface supply hose, but the name for it is a habitat supply hose because it will come from an onboard bank of appropriate gas on the Sentinel to the diver. He'll go out, do his 3-hour, 4-hour dive on the rebreather. In the unlikely event the rebreather fails, he just switches to that hose, comes straight back. So we use a minimal amount of gas to get back on hose-supplied open circuit. So we've effectively flicked it round. In the North Sea now, they dive reclaimed surface supply with a semi-closed rebreather as the bailout just to get back to the bell in emergency. We're flipping it round so the rebreather becomes the primary, the hose becomes the backup.
And what about like communications? Is that all through
all
the
comms, full comms. So basically, mouth open in the helmet.
And that's via the umbilical back to here.
Back to here. So that umbilical will have multiple strands. It will have electricity for heated suits.
Yep.
It'll have wire for video for the helmet camera, wire for comms for audible communications, wire for light power to the hat-mounted lights, and then basically the gas supply for the bailout. And telemetry from the rebreather, so the supervisor in the supervisor shack there will actually get the diver's rebreather display on screen. So
they're on helmets, they're not Kirby Morgans or something?
No, we're building them. Yeah, so basically these are scientific divers. We don't want them in a 17 kilo Kirby. If you've ever dived a Kirby, the field of vision is awful. So you've got a flat sheet of glass about that big with a big oronasal. You think it's big, you think, wow, it must look great. It's awful, it's like looking through a tube. And it's very heavy. If you do like a 3-hour shift in a Kirby, 37 or 27 or something, fibre or stainless, either way, if it's fibre, it needs the weight to sink it. If it's stainless, you lose some of the weight, but it weighs the same. But the neck ache is horrendous. And you certainly can't get flat and horizontal and swim along. So the other method of diving commercially, more common for scientific diving, police diving, civils diving, it's called a band mask, where you've got that same visual field, oronasal and controls, but actually built into a neoprene hood
Okay.
with a zip and a spider of straps that hold it on. It's called a
Right.
band mask. And in inshore diving, that's
Full face masks.
it's normally used as the helmet for the standby diver because it's so fast to put on.
Right.
It's pre-rigged, all the straps are in place bar one. You just go boom, zip, plug, jump. You can go out and assist the diver with a problem. The diver's wearing the hard hat in case things get dropped on his head because he's a working diver.
Yeah.
We don't need either. So we're looking at basically big field of vision, nice and bright. You know, it's the cliche. Think back to Abyss, a big clear mask where you can see them, they can see you, you can see everything. But lightweight, not helmet based, because people that are going to use this are not hammer swinging commercial divers. They're scientists going out there for some form of science.
Yeah.
And of course, as with the habitat, nothing we need exists, so we're building it in-house. Right from day one, I was talking to Mark about this when he first arrived, before a pen touch paper for the design of Sentinel, we bought DNV in from Germany, who will class it, and basically we're like, right, we're thinking of this, that's ridiculous, right, what about this, that's good, can proceed, bring them back in. So from day one, the people that will class or certify it, two main choices in the world are Lloyd's or DNV. We've brought in DNV, so they're helping us design it to standards that will enable it to pass full DNV classing as a manned habitat. And the same with any equipment we build to enable people to dive from it, because obviously
Anything like this exists in the military? Supplies that they
So-
don't.
it's a complicated answer, but where the concept of saturation diving came from was US Navy trials on how to physiologically saturate a diver from way back in the 60s with a thing called Sea-Lab. And they basically put something like this, but much smaller, on seabed to leave divers there long enough that they'd saturate to then work out how to decompress them.
To do the US Navy tables.
That's right. What they realised by doing it was there was no need to leave them down there. You could lower them under pressure, bring them back under pressure, and they could live on the surface in a pressurised habitat. So the seabed habitats fell out of favour. We're kind of turning it back on its head and going back to that because it's different user. Yeah. Let's carry on round so you can see all of it. So casualty rails throughout. These are Harken, if any of you have sails. They're IMCA rated for commercial diving, so 6-point casualty lift. So you can bring a casualty out of the moon pool and then take them straight through to the evacuation points, all pre-built in. Supervisor's shack here. So this will be instrumentation and screens. Each diver out, their equivalent of a shearwater, if you like, will be on screen as well because of telemetry from the rebreather. That will also transmit to the forward operating base, the shore base for Sentinel. So you've got lots of levels
How
of
far would a diver be able to?
100 metres.
They'll be able to go out
100 metres at the moment is the first, because what we did, we chose to set up deep and
in any direction.
any direction from it. So you go out that hole, you can go where you like. You can go to the back, to the front, to the left, to the right, whatever.
How many divers?
6 on board, 2 out. So you got 2 out, 1 dressed as standby, 1 supervisor. Those numbers work. So the only time they'd ever be 3 out is the one was out to rescue the other 2.
Right.
But that would be unlikely because we're working towards other means of diver rescue.
So for a group of researchers, scientists,
4 researchers, 2 crew.
they could basically do one area and spend like a week or 2 covering
Exactly.
that 100-metre section
Yep.
and measure it all out,
Yep.
and then move it along.
The main reason for the 100 is, like, example, what might you want to study? So one of the sites we've looked at as the first sea deployment is for studying a Posidonia beds.
Yeah.
You can't land something this big on the Posidonia bed because you've just destroyed what you're trying to study and protect.
Right.
So you park this on flat sand near it, and then you need the dive range to get to the study site.
Yeah.
So you'd position this very carefully to allow access straight to the study site. So realistically, you'd go, right, study site's there, we'll park Sentinel there. So for that month-long project, virtually all the dives will be to the same place because it's what they want it for. But if you were lucky enough to find a patch of sand big enough for this in the middle of a surrounding reef with what you're trying to study, then yes, you could dive any direction.
100 metres is quite a lot of umbilical.
It is, yeah. But bear in mind, it's not umbilical. This is a simulation of the size of a normal Kirby Morgan umbilical. just for some of our trials we've done here. But 100 metres is outside the building. So we did that when we did it. So 100 metres of umbilical is normal. It's perfectly manageable as long as there's no current, because the current picks the umbilical and pulls the diver. But it takes a lot of managing. But don't forget, diver beyond rebreather. So that behind you is an actual DP1 umbilical. See how much smaller it is?
Wow, yeah.
So again, we're not going to use DP1, it's nowhere near depth rated enough, but we're looking at designing a smaller umbilical to serve the fact that it's only going to be used for bailout, never prime. But again, would be classed CE'd, whichever version we choose to go for.
What is the maximum depth that you could go to with this?
200 metres.
200 metres.
Yeah.
How far off the seabed does it sit? Can you
About 4
change that?
metres. So basically water level in the moon pool down to seabed is about 4 metres.
Yeah.
What isn't here, because you think this is big, what isn't here is the stand.
Yeah.
So stand goes in first, Sentinel is then lowered down on the control parked on the stand. Sentinel can then be moved elsewhere. Current principle is that the stand will be removed, put to the next site, but the stand, the legs, are being built out of material that encourages coral and marine growth. So if a country where it's placed agreed and wanted it, the leg could be environmentally safely left behind because it would become an artificial reef. So we've got that option,
Yeah.
which is good. Carry on through.